Hey guys, it's George back again, this time hopefully with another instructional video, this time to help you make a racetrack on Roblox. So today I am looking at Lucas Oil Raceway Park, and so first things first, we need to get our measurements. And so to do that, we're going to take a print screen of this track, and we're going to toss it over into paint.net. And then we're going to lay out all of the measurements on this, so that way we know what we're doing when we're going to create this on Roblox. Now, I've actually had these measurements done beforehand, but I will still go through and show you how these are done to help you guys understand. So to get the length of the racetrack here, we're going to use the ruler tool up here, and we're just going to click here and then click there, and that'll get us that yellow line and shows the distance. Now if you weren't quite where you wanted, you can actually grab the edge and move it. So just if you want to make more fine tuning, you can also zoom in as far as you want to do that. And so then you would do that the same way with the width of the track, the width of pit lane, so on and so forth. And then when it comes to getting this curve, you're going to get the path tool. You're going to go to measurements and you're going to set this to feet. It usually starts out as miles or kilometers, I forget. And so then you just make these dots around the curve. Now, you can try to be as precise as you want, like this, or you can take these big leaps, like so. But these big leaps, you're not as precise. A good way to note of that is you can see just how far away from the wall that is. And so we got 1,186 feet right here. And if I did this for the whole thing, it would be even less than that. However, on my last attempt, I actually got 1,193 by being a bit more precise around the edge. And the last thing I'm going to teach you about these measurements before we move on is how to get a banking for a track when they don't list it actively on their website. So what you're going to end up having to do is you go back into Google Earth, and if you come down to the bottom here, you'll see this thing, elevation, and you can see it's hovering at 857, 856 feet roughly. And so anywhere my mouse is going to do an elevation. You can see when I go into the pond, it gets deeper. When I come out of the pond, it goes back up. And so you place your hand right up against the wall, and we get 863. And we go to the apron, and we get 859. And the apron's flat, I know this, so anywhere on the apron works. So 863 down to 859, so 4 feet of a difference. Now it's very imprecise because obviously it's just rounding to the foot. And actually you'll see if I go further along over here, so 861 down to only 860. So this is actually very imprecise, but if it's a track that doesn't have elevation, it's at least worth the shot. It gives you a little bit of something. So now that we know there's 4 feet of elevation drop, it's easy to think about this with a right triangle. So if I know that it's 4 feet over here, and we know that the width of the track is 53 feet, right? Now all we have to do is think about how do we get this angle? And trigonometry tells us that the tangent of opposite over adjacent can get us that angle. So what we do is we go to a website called Wolfram Alpha. It's a great math website. You can type in anything that you want in here and it will try to solve it to the best of its ability. Now some things on this website will ask you for to upgrade to their membership to actually get the stats of, but very useful. So we're going to do tan, and so I said it was 4 feet over 53, I believe, right? Yes. So it gives us this number. Now what you do is then you type in degrees, and then enter in, and so it's telling us 4 degrees. Now, to show you just how inaccurate this is for Google Earth, if we go and we look at what Lucas Oil Raceway Park's actual elevation, like banking is, It's 12 degrees. So as you can see, this is not that good to use. But if it's a track that does not have anything, you're struggling, it can at least help a little bit. And some places are actually more accurate than others for how the elevation works for Google Earth. It's kind of the luck of the draw. So now that we know that it's 12 degrees of banking, we can get rid of this whole triangle. And I will just make a note to myself, 12 deg. And that is going to be able to help me out a ton. So it just says 12 degrees. So I don't know, maybe... I always felt like maybe the straightaways were flat. But maybe I'm wrong. I suppose I'm wrong. We can also... 12. Yeah, it must be wrong. So I guess 12 degrees all the way around. And that works for me. So, now that we have all this information, I personally will convert these over to studs in my own little format. However, you do not have to do that. It's up to you what the scaling of your speedway is. A lot of people scale their speedway based on 1 foot equals 1 stud. So if you have 50 feet, it'd be 50 studs, and so on and so forth with these measurements. However, I use slightly different. So for me, I use 25 divided by 15 for the lengths of my track. And for the widths of my track, I use 10 divided by 7. And 25 divided by 15 does go down to 5/3, but the reason I use 25 divided by 15 and 10 divided by 7 is these numbers right here are the numbers in studs that a Camping World Truck Series truck on Roblox was. And then these are the real life number of feet. So these were studs, and these were feet of a truck I used on Roblox. And ever since then, I have used these scaling to make everything. And so because of that, everything fits this scale perfectly. And so a fun little fact about these scaling, if I took a Daytona and I made it to this length, it would be 20,000 studs. From, like, if you took the track as a oval and you turned it into a straight line, it'd be 20,000 studs long. As well, that means that with this scale, 488 studs per second is 200 miles per hour scale speed. So whenever you're at one of my tracks and you are going listed on the speedometer 200 miles per hour, you are going 488 studs per second. And so that's just kind of how my scale has always worked. Obviously 100 miles per hour therefore would also be 144 studs per second. And so usually I do not write these on my track maps. I wait until I'm in the studio working to get these numbers. So I'm just actually taking this right now. You can't see it, it's off screen. I'm tossing this into a whole section where I keep these. So now we are officially ready to get into Studio. And so we can get rid of Google Earth and jump into Studio. So now that we're in Studio, how do we start? So first things first, we want to make a part. So you just right click, get a part. And the first thing you want to do with that part is anchor it, because we're going to be using this for our track. And we don't really need custom physical properties for now, but you might want to, if your computer is not so great, you might want to just preset something that you think you'd want. So what I try to think about is what exactly is going to be the base. So for me, the base is going to be the apron. And so the apron is 53 feet plus 16 feet. So I actually use a whole lot of Google for this, but in this case I'm actually just going to use Wolfram Alpha because I have it open for once. So I said 16 plus 53, so 69, and then 69 times 10 divided by 7. It's going to get us 98.5 with a lot of numbers. So I always just round to the number of studs exactly, but to each their own, however precise you want to go. So 98 studs. So what I also like to try to do is find on the surface, so the right side is towards there, the left side is towards there, and so now I know 98. So this is going to be our makeshift apron, and then raise this up. So now 53 feet times 10 divided by 7. So we're going to get 75. So now we get 75. And something of note. So 75 minus, well, 98 minus 75 gives us 23. So I'm just going to map that out for myself here. And I'm only mapping this out because when I go and I rotate this, it's going to get a little wonk. So the degrees of banking is 12. However, if we use the actual degrees of banking on every single track, places like Daytona would be completely undrivable. So to make everything feel right, I always do half the amount of banking. So my Daytonas are like banked way less than what it is in real life. But because everything else is bankless, everybody doesn't really notice that so much. It just feels right. And honestly, when you drive my tracks, like if you drive any of my tracks, you probably wouldn't have even noticed that the banking isn't 100%. So for us, since it was 12, we're only going to do 6. And then I'll color these because it makes it easier to see where exactly I'm trying to line this up. So just bring this on up like so. And then see, so this thing in Studio, if you do Control L, you can change the axis of movement. So like now when I move this, it moves like that. It moves in the axis that this is angled. Versus if I do Control L, it moves like straight across. So yeah, it's really good for some things. And so we just kind of move this down. Basically, I want to get this to line up with this kind of blue edge we got going here. Sometimes you can open up this position and just kind of move this number until you kind of see it line up. That's too much. The thing is, this part is going to be used a ton throughout this racetrack, so that is why I'm spending the extra time getting it really close. And that looks good. So we'll remove that now. And then I'm going to grab this red part. By the way, I've been using Control D to duplicate parts. When I duplicate parts, it means the part's already inside. If I do a copy and paste, it's going to paste on top, which I don't want. Also, if you have collisions on, you won't be able to resize parts. So you can turn off collisions right here. See if collisions is currently marked on, and I try to move. It's not letting me move because it's colliding. So move this along. And for right now, I'm just going to make this wall be 1 stud thick. So we can see that right there, that was 1. And then I'm going to move it back to wherever the edge of this is. Then I'm going to bring it down. I just get as close as I can. I don't really need to get exact with this. So you can kind of see it lines up right there. And then I'm going to change my move to 5 and make this 5 studs tall. That's just what I feel comfortable with for walls. I feel like 5 studs is pretty good. Now I'm going to change it to white and change it to concrete, and I will name it wall. I will change this, well, it's already gray, which is fine for me, but I'll change them both to a gray. I suppose that's an okay gray. We can fine tune it in here. And we'll call them, well, I'm going to end up naming them both track surface, but then we're going to go back and name this one apron. And we're going to change both of them to concrete as well. And now for Lucas Oil Raceway Park in particular, you can actually see they have this like tar line that goes through the lanes. And so that's actually something we didn't take a measurement of, but we know that this is 4 lanes across and it's 53 feet. So we're just going to make them even. So actually it's best to do the 75 divided by 4, which is 18.75. Now this we will be more exact with, just that way it's a little nicer looking. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to duplicate the track surface. Then I'm going to raise the positioning by just a touch. So this is 4.418. I'm going to move it up to 4.42. It's not a whole lot, but it's enough that it won't Z-fight like you're seeing on the sides here. And so if we go in real close, you can actually see it's just barely a touch above. And so because of that, we don't want us to bump over it, so we're going to turn can collide to false. And now we're going to name it. And I think the tar lines probably should be about 0.5 of a width, so just do that. And then, so that we can be precise with it. Oh, I want to change my axis, move it up to the top like so. And then we're going to do 18.75. So I'm going to move it in by 18.75, Control D, and go like so. So now we should be all set. As you can see, 1, 2, it's kind of hard to see from so far out. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so that means there's 3 lines there, 1 line, 2 line, 3 line. And this 4th line that's down bottom is actually the apron line, which, if I recall correctly, at Lucas Oil, I believe it's like white down there, but we can go back and change it later, however we decide. And so the apron line, I'm actually going to do the same thing with the apron here. Once again, I'm going to change the positioning just a touch. So right here, I'm just going to do from 0.5 to 0.51. And change that. And now, once again, I'm going to do 0.5. So I know at Lucas Oil there is a yellow line that goes around the bottom of the racetrack. And so I want to preserve that fact. That was off from the 18.75 thing I had earlier. So I'll make that a yellow line. And we'll make sure to turn the can collide off again. And then I'm going to move this one over. And so I'm actually going to color this one momentarily, just so I can see where that edge is again. And we're going to just move it over in, like so. And so now I'm going to get my color back. And because I'm not exactly sure if this one needs to be white or not, I'm just going to make it white. I'll label it white line, and then later on I can select them all and make them black if I need to make them black like the other tar lines. And then the last thing I want to do is add the catch fence in. You can go as nutty as you want with your catch fence. For me, I'm just going to do a very basic one. So what I always do is I try to leave just a little bit of separation on the back side of the wall and give this big separation to the front side of the wall. And so you just kind of line it up. And I like to do 12-ish studs tall of catch fence, but each track is different. So now here, if you want to do the extra curve to it, you can. I used to do that a lot, but I'm not a super fan of doing that anymore. And then we're going to look up catch fence in models, and just like that, there's my catch fence, which is actually a copy of, wow, I don't see it anymore. Race Dude 82's catch fence. This is actually his texture. So we're going to copy that. Actually, see there's old fire from that way back. And then we'll get rid of it. And then we're just going to, so I actually have that set up to a bind right there. However, if you don't have that shortcut set up, so you select the thing, and then you'd right click and hit paste into. So I have mine set up for Control-Shift-V and Control-B. And I actually use Control-B way more than that. Control-Shift-V. And then we're going to take this transparency 1 and catch fence. And this texture, I don't always like it in this format, this 25 studs per tile. So I'll probably drop it down to like 15. It looks a little bit more, a little more quality that way. Maybe more than that. It's all stretched out, it just doesn't look as good. So now we have our track segment. And actually at Lucas Oil, I think there's also white lines. Yeah, there are actually white lines that go out through the corners. They're just above the tar lines. So we will add those in as well. Always good to add extra detail that you can remove later. So I think I'm just going to put like 2 studs above that line. Like so. Actually, maybe less than that. Just do 1 stud. So there we go. Right, track line. So I always try to label things that way they're not too overlapping, so it's easy to get them later. If you really wanted to go really extra hard, you could even put this as like tar line top, tar line middle, bottom tar line, and then you could go back through later. Because to give you perspective, so now we're going to model this. So I selected this and I hit Control G. Anytime I'm doing one of these quick button presses, you can also do a right click to do it. So like there's duplicate, there's group, obviously paste into. Those are the ones I use the most, is group, duplicate, and paste into. That's very common for me. But to give you perspective, so once we get a bunch of these going, what becomes really easy is then if I go up here and I type in filter workspace, like tar line, you can see it only picks up the tar lines. So if I want to remove all the tar lines at once, I can select through all of this. Now the thing is, I have all these models selected as well. And so I'd have to go back through and then I can just hit delete and they're all gone. Or what you could also do to remove the hassle of the model, so you could grab all these at once, group them. Then I have a key press for Shift or Control Q selects children. However, to do that, you can also just right click, select children. That one's, I'm pretty sure, one that you actually have to set up ahead of time. And then if I press Control U, it'll ungroup them inside all this one model together. And then it makes it really easy to just, so you pull down the one at the bottom, hold Shift, hit the one at the top, and then boom, you can delete them all at once. So, but we want these, and we want these all in separate groups, so we just Control Z back. And then Control U, and we'll delete all these extras. So now we're ready to get into the meat and potatoes of our racetrack. So First, let's start out with one of the straightaways. So 635 feet. And this one's going to be times 25 divided by 15. So 635 times, 15, or 25 divided by 15. So that's going to give us 1,058. And so because we used these blocks all in the same direction, if you remember, we never like picked one of these up, we never did like this, picked them up and rotated, right? What we can actually do is, so we can select all, I don't know why these are still here. Oh, I guess my studio's glitched. That's really fun. Oh yeah, big glitch. What is happening there? Weird. Anyways though, so if we go in and we select everything, what was the number we said again? 1058. This number 2 is the width right now. So we can just do 10,058, and there we go. So now obviously those white lines, because they're dashed white lines, I'd have to go back through and segment indirectly, but so move this out of the way, and then now I'm just going to bring this down to much smaller for our turns. So the way that we're going to do this now is, so we have 1,193 feet, and that is 180 degrees. 1,193 divided by 180. And this is going to get us 1 degree of rotation. So I'm actually going to use as much of that number as I can, 6.62777777. And then I am personally going to do by 5 degrees of rotation. However, if you have a much bigger track, example, if you're doing Daytona, I would suggest doing 2.5 degrees of rotation. You'll see what I mean in a moment by that. But so in this particular case, I'm using 5 degrees of rotation. So I'm going to do times 5. And so we get 33.13888. And so now I need to take that number. That number is still in feet. So we need to do 31.13, or 13888. And apparently there's a 5 on the end. And do that times 25 divided by 15. So now we get 55. So that would mean that this is going to be 55. So actually, in this particular case, I'm actually going to do 2.5 as well, I guess, because this is pretty wide of a section. So for Daytona, these sections, if it was by 5 degrees, would be closer to like 100 or 200 studs. And when you just have that distance, and then you suddenly move 5 degrees, it just feels really bumpy. And even this would feel kind of bumpy, so actually I'm going to do half of this and do 2.5 instead. So we know that this is 55. This is also a fun little trick. So if I do 55 divided by 2, it actually does it for me. So actually, now that I think about it, we could have done all this math in Studio, but yeah, let's actually do that real quick. I've never actually done it that way. So we said it was 1,193. So, okay. 1,193 divided by 180 gives us 6.628. Obviously, this is Roblox rounding constantly. So times that by 2.5. And then times that by 25 divided by, well, times by 20, I'm curious. Times by 25 divided by 15, right? Yes, because at this point it's feet. And we get 27.617. So I'm just going to round this off to 27.5. It's good enough for me. And at this point, this is the start of our corner. So I'm going to move this into place next to our straightaway. It's actually off right now by 0.05, but that's because of the 0.5 that it's currently at. But we can adjust that later. So now what we're going to want to do is you're going to duplicate this. You want to keep one of these parts separate for a while because you're going to need it later. We're going to change our rotate to 2.5. So now we're going to duplicate one of these. And we rotate it by 2.5. And now we use our move to move this into place. And then we line that on up like so. And at this point, we would end up going through as well, and we fix any like overlaps. So these aren't actually overlapping all that bad, but if you really want to, like you can kind of see like it's kind of got like this whole edge here. So you just try to like get kind of more of the edge. If you're really all about that precision. Personally, I am, so I am doing this. And you end up having to do this every single time that we're doing this, and you'll see in the end it works out. It gets easier over time because you're doing a lot less than you think you would have to. So just keep on doing that. And so now we're going to group these together, and now that's 5 degrees. So let me grab this again, and we do 5 degrees, and then we move it into place again. And so you're just going to keep doing this. Now there is a trick, a mathematical trick, to making sure that you do the right number of rotation. I've never really thought about the math behind it. I just know that this is the case from doing this so often. So right now, we now have a section of 10 degrees here together. And so actually on our next one, we're going to copy one and save one off to the side, the 20-degree section. Because at the end, it becomes paramount to have that. Because it's going to go, so it goes from 2.5 to 5, then 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 80, then 80 to 160. And now, the way you actually have to think about this is the corner isn't technically 180 degrees because your 0 then goes to 2.5, then 5. The thing is, when it comes all the way back around, you still have another 0 again, so to speak, the last straight piece again on the other side. So it's actually an odd number of pieces. And so that's why we have that piece for later. And so we're going to have these together. And so this is actually a 10. And so the thing is so when we get to 160, we're then going to use the 20 piece that we leave off to the side to get 80. And then after that, our 20 piece that we're going to save off to the side, we'll then use our single. I'm going to see it's off right there slightly, so you could fix that in if you want. I don't quite know if it's going to be enough to really wreck a car, but I'll still just try to fix it a little bit. It's very close, so at this point I'll just use like 0.05 and just smidge in by 1 step. Move back to 0.1. That actually went too far. But that's actually better. It's better if you're too far coming from the side they're coming from, because then they're not going to hit a wall. They're just going to kind of bump past it. So yeah, all you guys that watched all the way to this point in the video, 34 minutes in, you'll know that my Lucas Oil actually has a small issue with that wall right there. As a note, Lucas Oil also has Safer Barrier. If I wanted to add that in, I would have added that at the beginning, although there are some tricks I could add that in at the end if I'm using F3X. Maybe I might show that at the end of the video. So now we have this 20-degree piece. We're going to duplicate this, and we're going to save this off to the side with our 0-degree piece. And now we're going to do a 20-degree piece again because we need it to continue on. So at this point in the video, you should pretty much have down what we're doing. Like I said, you're going to do this all the way up until you get 160 degrees of rotation. So if you want to skip past all this point, you can. In the meantime, I will rattle off some other stuff for you guys that feel the need to watch through all this. So, if you didn't know, I own the One Main Financial Racing Association. This year we have 3 divisions, the 2020 season. Our 2020 season will be starting sometime in the middle to end of May. Not exactly sure yet. We are still working things out there. So I am hosting the D1 Cup Series, and I have Casco Fire hosting the Division 2, a K&N Pro style series or ARCA styled series, but more of a blast from the past, something more towards the Bush North series. Some of you might not have even been alive when that was still around, but think like the old K&N / ARCA cars like Gen 4, but the tracks they went to were more like wheel and modified tracks. Actually, in a lot of cases, a lot of these tracks were wheel and modified tracks at one point or another. So if you want to check that out, I will actually drop a link in the description of how to get to that series. You can go to that Discord server. Depending on when you're seeing this video, that series might be dead, but if it's still May of 2020, there's a good shot that you can still get in and get some race in it. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so the 3rd division is owned by, right now his username is 410 Sprint Car, really dating this video. His name is currently 410 Sprint Car. He goes by Damien Fenton, and he is running the Division 3, which is dirt late models. Okay, so right here we now have an 80-degree piece. We're rotating by 80 degrees. And so now we are going to get our 20 piece into place. So with my degrees still rotated on 80, I can actually rotate this around, and this will actually fit perfectly at the end of the 160. Now, this is not going to go perfectly at the end of the 160, so I always do 45 for this and just rotate it straight around like that. And so now all we have to do is connect those pieces right there, and that will be finished. So yeah, once this piece connects, then that piece connects, then that piece connects, we are done with the corner. And then all we have to do is duplicate this and put it on the other side, and we are all set. Got a little bit more lazy about these lines. The lines down on the apron seem to be the ones that really are bad looking. The ones up on the racetrack aren't so bad. Especially this one. This one, because it's... The reason why the ones down on the apron are so much worse than up top is the angle of this is actually sharper at the edge. At the bottom. Well, it's not sharper per se. It's more that it's like when you see the overlap. You can see it really well here. See, it barely overlaps up top, but it overlaps a ton down bottom. And That's just straight up math right there. So we are almost done with the corner. So close. One more piece. Alright, and now the last little piece just has to fit into place. Lines up so nice. As well, I know some of you have followed my racing games for a long time. I have a lot that is supposed to come out this summer, summer 2020, so keep an eye out on that. Specifically a NASCAR style game. I know how much you guys love that, with some Cup Series action. Will not be called NASCAR though. Not on that trademark grind anymore. So now that we have our whole corner complete, what we're going to do is we're going to take all these models inside, and we're going to control you, control you, control you, control you, control you, control you, and I think one more? Nope, that was it. So I ungrouped all these, so now this entire corner is just kind of one model. And now, to get the rest of the racetrack in, we're going to do Control D to duplicate, then rotate. I'm still in 45 degrees, so I can just flip around 180. You can see it doesn't flip around and just line right up, so we're going to have to do that ourselves. And I'll just kind of get it a little bit into place. So what I actually do, if I want to get really exact here, so we can actually take, yeah, really any of these parts. So we'll take the apron, the position, oh, actually I should do the same one. So 1129.7, and this is 1125.598. So just take those, put that in like so, so we get that number. 4.102. So now, if we take this move and make it 4.102, we get both of these, and we move it by 4.102, that is now perfectly lined up. And then, I actually do a little bit of overlapping here, usually, like so. If you really want, you can clean that up later. Just trying to... yeah, it's whatever. I really don't care that much. It's not that big of a deal. And so now the last thing I want to do is get the base plate under the infield. And at this point we have a track. Obviously the rest of it is doing all the scenery approach to it. Also the other thing is, oh yeah, whoops. Kind of forgot to link this up. So there, now that's linked. And down at this other end. So what I actually did right there to move my camera really fast to the other side is if you click on something and you press F, so like that base plate, and all I do is press F by itself, it goes right to it. I don't know if you can, yeah, zoom to F. And it'll go right to the object. Also, if you like are turned away from the object, and I do F, it'll keep my like orientation of my camera, but like go to it. So like right here, I'm looking up into the sky. Now I'm looking underneath. So I'm looking at it like, so if I'm over here, I'm looking straight down at an object, and I press F to it. Now I'm looking straight down at the center of that object. And then when I'm holding down right click, that's how you rotate the camera really quickly. In case you didn't know that. Some people just like don't know that, I guess. I don't know. I feel like it's common. Anyways, back to what we were supposed to be doing, the base plate. So how I'm going to do this is, so this apron says its Y position is 0.5, and I know that it is 1 stud tall, which means that the direct middle of this is 0.5. So if I just, the thing is, if I take the base plate and I make it also 1 stud tall, and then I move it to 0.5, you can see it's now Z-fighting with the apron. But if I just make it like 0.49, or maybe even 0.48, just so it's far enough down, you can see now it stops Z-fighting. And then if you want a thicker base plate, you can just click and drag down on it. But the thing is, so if I now, you can see now the position's changed because it's based on the middle. So if I was to put in the 0.49 now, you can see now it's like in the middle of the racetrack. So they have to be the same size to get those positions right. And then we're just going to extend this out. So it's actually bigger than a base plate. Base plates are max sized at 2048. And the move tool is maxed out at 1024. So if I actually type in 2048, see it goes straight to 1024. But 1024 is half of 2048, so I can duplicate the base plate and move it by 2 spots, and boom, we are there. And then I'm probably going to move this in by 1024, move the other one in. But yeah, I guess I shouldn't move them in by 1024 because then I'm back to 2048. However, I'll try to get them in the middle and then resize from there. 600 each side. So boom, we are now at a point where this track is set, ready to go. So just try to get some grass coloring. Also, I want to group these again, like so. Track, and then also ungroup all these. Also, by the way, so if you were trying, I forgot to mention this earlier, if you're trying to select an object that is in a part, if you hold down Alt, that's how you do that. And you can select things that are inside models. And if you want to select multiple objects, you hold down Alt. If you're trying to select multiple objects, you just hold down Control. But if you're trying to select multiple objects inside of a part, hold down Alt and then press Control and hold down Control and Alt, and you can click as many things as you want. Select them all at once. Or like I showed you guys, you can filter workspace. Also, what's really cool is if you ever have a script that you think is running in your place and it's doing something bad, so we put script in, and it can be named like fire or like, here I'll make it like infected, because that's like a lot of scripts, right? And so we close this up, and we type in filter workspace script, see it'll find every script in the server. So that's how you like save yourself from bad scripts. It's just find the scripts that way. And so anyways, we're gonna go back, make our place plate grass. Looks good. And at this point, we would just end up throwing in a car, and we could go and drive on this. Find a car I have that's ready to go. A lot of these cars are destroyed. So yeah, actually, I'm gonna make this video have something in it that I've never explained before. So I actually got rid of a lot of the NR meshes I was using. So for example, this one, oh, this one actually still has the meshes. Maybe these might not be my meshes then, because I thought I got rid of these. Yeah, these must not be mine. Anyway, so like these trucks, for example, though, it shows in the picture they're trucks. They're not anymore. These meshes actually aren't gone yet. That's actually true. They're going to be gone soon, though, replaced by the new for meshes. These Pinty cars, big gone. Modifieds, gone. Outlaw late models, gone. I think even this car is gone. Yeah, gone. So a lot of these cars are gone. I think this one's even gone too. Yeah, that late model's gone too. So just so you know, if you're trying to ask me for cars, a lot of these cars aren't actually existing anymore. So, but anyways, these cars still exist for the moment, so we will use them to drive real quick. There's actually anti-vision lag cars, so part of my driving. And they also have the draft. But you can kind of get a gist here. So I'm doing, like I said, scale speed wise. Well, I guess 244 studs per second would be 100 miles per hour. So I'm doing a little less than 100 miles per hour here. You can see it's pretty tame, obviously, because I should be doing way more than 100. So, yeah, that's pretty much everything you guys need to know, obviously. If you go to make things like pit road, you just kind of have to do that by hand. Oh, and you know, I guess I'll teach you guys a little bit about F3X, because it is a lifesaver. So, if I wanted to do safer barrier, for example, I would type in wall, and I get all the wall pieces, and then I want to go through and not get the straight ones. So right now what I'm doing is I'm holding down Alt and Control to unselect these things I've already selected. Actually, you know what? I'm going to throw... I just realized it's not overlapping correctly. I'm going to throw some safer barrier in. That doesn't overlap correctly. Does it overlap correctly over here? Yeah, it does. Anyways, I can fix that later. That's no big deal. So anyways, I'm selecting all the walls in the corner right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a grouping on them. So this will be the exterior wall. And then I'm going to do a duplicate of that. And I'm going to rename these metal wall, because if you didn't know, the first layer of a safe barrier is actually metal. So we're going to change it over to metal. And then using our F3X plugin, we can go to local. And we have to find the dragger. The dragger's way over there. And usually, if I'm doing safer barrier, I would move it out by about 2 to 3 studs. So I'm going to do 2 studs here. Actually, I guess I'm going to do 3. So move it out like so. And then we need the foam to fill it in. So to do that, we're going to get another group. And we will select all of those. And the dragger's way over there. So that's actually pretty cool too. So, so now I'm in this other group and we're doing the foam. So I want blue and I want foam. I want more like a lighter blue. Obviously you can do whatever you want for this, but it's me. And so I'm going to move 1 stud back. Then I'm going to do 0.5 studs down. Then we're going to go to the move tool. We're going to do both. And this is the size of each of those bricks right now. So they're 1 stud width, as you can see in the gap. They are 13.85 studs tall, and they are 27.5 studs wide. So I'm going to move them in. So both is what's making them shrink on both sides at once. So it's at 1.5 there. So it's moving at 1 stud on each side when I'm doing this. That's why it jumps from 1.5 to 3.5. Bring it down. 2.5 looks pretty good. Now we're going to go back to normal and just fill that gap. And then I can actually do a clone here inside F3X, like so, and then go find the spot. And I'm going to move this over by, trying to think how many I should. Maybe like 5 studs. Maybe 10. Yeah, that'll work. Then we're going to do a clone again, find the dragger again. Fortunately, you can't just lock into the dragger. If you can, I just at least don't know about it. Now we're going to move back the other way. And boom, now we have our foam in the safer barrier. And at this point, I go back up to my plugins and I turn F3X off. Now, the last thing I would need to do is I need to fix this transitioning. I want to just leave that wide open. So, in this case, actually, we can just drag it straight in. Because it's coming off the angle of the wall. So we'll just bring it right down into that wall there. And then also, while we're at it, just gonna have to resize this because I actually don't have this part grouped anymore. So I would go around and I would do that to all of the little transitioning points here. Oh, there it is. So we'd go down here, grab this, just move that in. So now if you are dealing with a track that has transitional banking where you're coming off the bank, so if you're coming off 12 degrees of banking, or 6 degrees in this case, down to flat, you'd have to do this a little differently. You probably have to make a specific part to do this instead of just dragging this, but for my use case this worked. And the reason why this is actually working is because the last piece I was using is the piece that is angled at 2.5 degrees. You can see right there, orientation 2.5, and then this is 0, so it's just kind of moving towards that way. Alright, and the last thing I want to do is add our finish line. So for this case, I'm actually just going to use our white line, Control D, and then this 1058, I want the finish line to be like 3 studs wide, so just make it be 3. Then we find it by doing the F, and then you can just resize it up. And it's already can collide false and all that. If you don't want it clipping on these lines, you can either move the lines or just move the positioning up. So 4.3, boom, just like that, we are good. So that is a whole racetrack. Minus all the scenery bits, obviously that you kind of have to do on your own, to each their own. So, you know, throwing up grandstands here and the pit road down through here. You can actually probably do the pit road the same way with the F3X. You know, you just select like all these apron bits here. Which I guess I could show you guys that too. Trying to be as helpful as possible on how all this should work. So I grab all the apron bits and I duplicate them and then I group them and call them all pit lane. So what we can actually do is we select all the apron bits and then we move them inward like so. Now when you move them inward, you'll actually see like they're spacing over top of each other. So we actually said the pit road would be 50 feet, and it'd be about 35 feet inward. So, okay, first off, let's move all the way out to the edge. And then we have to figure out what 35 feet inward should be. So 35 times 10 divided by 7 is 50. Yeah, guess so. And so we'll do an increment inward of 50. And then I'm going to resize, and the width of these is 98. We want it to be 50 feet. So I guess 500 divided by 7. Incredibly long video. I'm sorry. I hope you guys kind of skim through this a bit more. 71. So then, actually I could just type in 71, but I'm going to miss this edge here. So instead of doing that, 98 minus 71, 27. Move that in with normal, and then with both, I'm going to do 0.1, and we're just going to move this until they stop doing that overlap, like so. And you can kind of see there's some spacing over there I'm going to have to fix. And then now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this pit lane, duplicate it again, pit lane wall. So you can actually do a lot of extra with F3X. So now I'm going to go to resize. I'm going to make the height of it 5 studs. Then we're going to go back to normal. I'm going to move this up until it is on the ground. And then, so now I'm going to use normal again to move this over to make it be 1 stud in width, like I do with all my walls. Let's make it white while we're at it. Pit wall outer. And then we get another pit lane wall. Wherever it just went. Oh, because it's marked for apron, duh. Doesn't matter which one I use. And now we're going to do pit wall inner. Okay, and then using our local, we'll bring it to the inside of pit lane. Like so. And once again, we're going to get that overlap again. So we go back to here, we do our both. And then, oh, wrong direction. Till we hit that overlap again. Kind of see it's not perfect, but it'll do. And then, at this point, so what I would do, it actually makes it easier on me, so I can take all these pit lane groups and bring them out like this, and then I bring them up into the sky, and then I would actually ungroup them. So actually, I don't want to just bring it into the sky willy-nilly. We'll do like move 200, another like 600 in the sky, because 3 clicks, and then I would ungroup them. And this way, what I can do is I can just use the selection to select and like delete all of that, because that's down in like turn 1. I don't need it. Oh yeah, and turn off F3X, it stops selecting everything every time I delete. And then the pit lane kind of starts like maybe like right there. So just get rid of all that. And then I want to zoom over there and look. So now I have all that, and then I just have to go back in and address that. So as you guys can see, you guys can actually do a lot with F3X. Really good plugin. Recommend finding it. To do that, you go here and then plugins and then F3X. And if that's the specific one you want right there, by Gigs D4X. That's the one you want. And so yeah, that's pretty much everything else I really have to show for you. If you guys have any questions, drop it down below. I covered a lot. So hopefully this helps you pursue making any racetrack that you possibly want on Roblox.